series. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.
Lots of questions.
Yes, lots of questions, please. We have Jeff Ford from Taj Farms. He's been very generous to our program. And we have Chef DJ from upcoming Maya Eatery. So please welcome our two great
So Tanya and I have been doing this for 3 or 4 years now. What we're always trying to get you is to be ingredient based cooking inspired by what you do. So everything local, seasonal, and sustainable are really what we look for. We always wanted that old kind of restaurant guard that you shouldn't buy your carrots off the same truck where your bleach and mops are coming from. You should know the farm, etc. We've even just done a few things recently, either last time or the time before, where we were showing you the bricks test that flavor equals health and wellness in your cooking, and you can't replace that with anything else. So today we're doing a pig. This pig is actually not from my farm, it's from a neighboring farm, but done very similarly the same way. So you guys hear a lot about how animals, is there anybody in here that's vegan or vegetarian or
I'm allergic to pork.
Okay. So I respect everybody's journey. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian or an omnivore, we all should always start with this. We have a lot more in common than we do not in common. And one of those places we should always start with is stop eating out of a box or something wrapped in polypropylene, and something that comes out of a factory. And that is by eating locally. Of course, all food comes from farms, but what kind of farm do you want your food to come from? So on that, commercial pork, and with anything, it has just gotten out of control. There's so much intervention that is done with animals where there's no redundancy, and as all living things, nature has given us this ability to heal ourselves, give enough time and space. Our bodies are about 60% redundant. So that's why we have the ability to get over a cold, or if we get a virus and it attacks our liver, our body lots of times can repair itself. But when we are living in very tight conditions or stressful conditions, what does that do? That gives you inflammation, and inflammation causes all sorts of things with problems. And with animals, it causes sickness, respiratory conditions, and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But given the space and allowed to be the kind of animal they are, they thrive. So God put a shovel on the end of this pig's nose for a reason. It likes to dig around and root. So having that ability to be in an open area, root, forage for grubs and other insects and different things like that, it does there. Or just eating roots of different plants. You have to also manage that too, because you don't want to overpopulate an area or cause destruction to the soil or plants or other thing in that condition. So that's what makes it a thing. And all of these things start to build into the health of the animal, which tend into flavor profiles. So with my pigs, they get no commercial crop or mill diet, as you would call it. So we don't buy from a mill that is grinding up, that from a farm in the Midwest that grew 25,000 acres of soy and corn and things like that. So there's no soy, no corn, and no GMO that goes into there. Does anybody know why that's a good reason not to feed those things? GMOs. And I don't know how much you guys have discussed things like that, but the genetically modified things, and one thing a lot of those crops right there have in them is they have a natural weed repellent in them, which is Roundup, glucosamine. I don't know if you guys have heard a lot about this in the news and stuff. We're the only country, industrialized country on the planet left that allows it to be used in farming, and we are the only one that allows all this different intervention into our food on that level too. So, and particularly, I'm not a scientist. There are things though that you don't want. Pigs tend to store things in their fat, kind of like we do. So if we've eaten something bad or had on some sort of medication, we build up in our fat, and pigs will do the same thing. So those things, so you eventually are digesting these things. So the cleaner, the less intervention, whether it's a chicken, a turkey, a lamb, a goat, a pig that has had a cleaner diet, the better off you are. So the other thing, it's become popular in a lot of things, people are trying to green feed their animals and they're feeding it on a lot of different byproducts and waste, and that's a good thing. But that's not a strong diet either. So you always hear like these, everyone talking about like spent grain from breweries, collecting that, which is a good way to like breweries to recycle it. But it's not a magic unicorn food or anything. And the reason it's called spent grain is because it's been cooked and all the sugars and everything are out of it. So like a barley, for instance, Christina, correct me if I'm wrong, like let's say a good barley is about between 26 and 29% protein and probably about 10 or 12% fat in there. So once you cook it, that nutrition goes down to about 3 to 4% protein and about 1% fat. I have all the readouts from the breweries, I can tell you, go down the list. So that doesn't equal, it's a good filler for like a pig, but it's not a great thing. And the other thing that happens is when you're trying to manage this and you're not feeding it to ruminants, which are like cattle, that have a reticulum and they're a way to digest it. It's very, very unstable, and I don't know if you guys have covered any of this in your food science yet. They're called aflatoxins, which is the bacteria levels in our food, and everything has a bacteria. It could be a box of cereal, it could be a can of, like everything has a simple thing. But when you're feeding things that are recycled and that have been allowed to like ferment in an uncontrolled environment and things, like then this animal who's, when it's hungry, will just eat, 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 and eat. You don't want to keep giving it a diet of that, because what it basically has done, then it starts to like slow down what the input to output, what your conversion ratios are. So with on a natural diet, my pigs end up from start to finish, when they're weaned, we're right at about a 3 to 1 conversion. So if I put 1,000 pounds of food into an animal, I'm getting out about live weight, about a 333 pounds on there, and and I'm really proud of that. It's taken a while to kind of get there, because I used to feed conventionally, because I used to raise show pigs. I would get like a pretty price for a prize pig. Now doing it this much different way, I've learned a lot. So on my farm, we have an excess of, sometimes we have milk. We always have a lot of whey, because I make cheese. And we always have eggs that aren't getting into the basket. And these are all the major uses of protein. And then there's a couple of breweries that when they spin the tanks to get the yeast out, there's about 25 gallons of beer. So that is the spent grain that I have goes to poultry, and then that beer that I get from the brewery goes into, so the last 6 to 4 weeks of their life, they're very, very happy pigs. Like Hannes from Carnita Shack or Porchetta Shack now, like he always says, my pigs smell drunk. Like they have a big beer flavor to them. On there, and then some chefs too say that like that they think that the milk and the whey gives the fat a different consistency that's a lot better at absorbing flavor profiles. Does that sound make sense there? So these are all things that like this is not what you're going to get off of a commodity pig. So these are things on there, and then the whole nose to snout to tail and all that stuff has become very popular of recent years, and chefs are doing a great job of utilizing it. Tim Kalanko, who is at Cucinary now, did like a great amount of study of how like through like I think they had 9 locations of how like the bones went to miso for the Asian restaurant, how the chops went to the steakhouse, how the sausage went to here, and they used the whole pigs, and they would do this for everything that he had. So. That's basically it. So the life cycle of these pigs is the gestation on a pig is 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days, 114 days. And then from the time they're born to the time they're harvested, I like my pigs. My pigs are also they're like me, they're a little pudgy, they're big boned. And so they can easily, full grown, they're between 275 and 300 is like the harvest weight for them. And they'll get a nice, Like there's some steaks from one of my pigs over there. They'll get a really great fat cap on them that chefs use. It's just, that's my template that works for me. Everybody does different thing. So my neighbor, Noel, and his cousin Paul raise these pigs. They sell all different sizes all the time. They have a little bit, they do mainly green-fed pigs as well. There's a lot, and that's on, they're on a 300-acre organic farm. So, so that's it. So basically, when you're thinking about a pig, I want you to think that like it's not just something that arrived. That it was born. That was a certain amount of time, and then that pig was raised, whether it was 3 months, 5 months, 8 months, in order to get to your thing. So, and we like to maximize that creation, and we want you guys to carry on that responsibility as well. And the other thing that I think is important to think about is that all living things on this planet should have a quality of life and a quality of death. So when we are harvesting these animals, we do it very early in the morning. It's actually where they are, we are not moving them around or anything. It's done in a very quiet. They don't even ever know what's really happening. We give them a space out morbid or something, but this is an animal and not a person. Is that we feed them, so they're standing there, and then a shot is fired, and then nothing. There's nothing that they realize. There was no stress to the animal, etc. Because at the bottom line, as much as we care and love them, they are food. We don't humanize them. They don't get names, etc. Because their destination is to be part of whether it's a culinary program, a chef's table, charcuterie, etc. Does anybody have any questions so far?
When you talk about suckling pigs, then trying to.
Yeah.
What is how many pounds?
We don't have a lot of those here, and I personally won't sell a pig that's under about live weight, that's under about 75 pounds, because for the amount of volume I do and my breeding program, it's really, and I look at like the amount of flesh to bone, the ratio, you're less than 50% there, and that doesn't have a good feeling for me on what I do. But there are people that have them and stuff. But so a suckling pig is, my weaning weights are about 25 or 30 pounds. So imagine a mama pig who weighs about 500 pounds. If she has 10 pigs on her that, as they're getting to their last week or so, at about in between 4 to 6 weeks is when I wean. It just depends on, weather has always a big thing. If they're having to burn calories to keep warm on there. So with that, she's taking care of those pigs on that. So, but a suckling pig, lots of times, those pigs are anywhere from 10 pounds live weight to around 15-ish, so they're small. So you're really just let's say if you have we'll do something in the middle, 12 pounds, you're only going to really get about 3 or 4 pounds of meat. Is that correct? And I think, Tootsie is one of my sows. If she carried all these pigs for 114 days and do this, that's a lot to give to just that little bit on there.
So, is the pig actually pink when it was alive?
No, this pig, if you guys want to come up and you can see, this pig was a hamp cross, which are the black pigs with the white bands on them. So you can see there's a little bit of black hair on there. So everybody though, anybody's skin, ours, once you take the epiderm off, it's all the same fleshy color. So so basically the hair is removed through, it's called a scald, so we bring the water, it's basically a bath of about 180 degrees. And I use it's called a track steer, which is like a bobcat or a small tractor. And we hook chains to it, and we dump them in there and bring them out. And they have these circular knives that you use for this, and you're just basically here. And then we're taking towels that we're also soaking in the bath, and we're letting it here. So as we're doing it, we're working. We move the towel, soak it back in. We're trying to work it as fast. And then at the end, when we get this much off, we take it's a power washer that's heated, so we'll do a rinse on it like that, and then it's called a wheat burner, which is basically like a flamethrower, in which we'll go over the pig quickly, and then we'll give it a final rinse.
And where's the bowl?
Huh? Right here.
Oh.
Just a little 22 on this one. It's not like TV where, you know. So there is often, you know, with something like this, I'll use a bolt gun, which actually doesn't penetrate it, and we'll just, you know, as the pig's eating very quietly, I'll just do it right behind the ear. It drops down, and then we'll bleed it out. Questions?
You said you were pasture raised or what?
Yeah, these are all pasture raised. You know, I call it a paddock, so they are moved through. This pig actually, along with others, they're in what's called a sled. So this is, I don't know if you were here earlier, it just came from my neighbor's farm, and he has avocados. So basically what they do is every 2 days they move the sled, and it's about 8 feet by 24 feet, and it has about 4 to 5 pigs in it, and they drag it through the avocado row. So they're turning the soil and aerating it in between the trees on there. So my pigs are in about half-acre sections, and they get moved every couple of weeks. So, but they're not confined.
Yeah, they get different diets.
Right, so like these are all grain-fed, non-commercially fed, no GMO, no soy, no corn. Cool. Anything else right now? Any questions about a pig or?
Is the blood gone?
Yeah.
Oh.
You have to drain the blood out, or the meat will have a terrible, really. If you leave the blood in, it leaves like a burnt, dirty taste to the flesh. Is that? Yeah. That's the first thing you do. And then, so the pig is hanging in there. I bleed it out. Sometimes we save the blood for some people on there. And then, we start on the scalding it. So we don't take any of the offal out or anything else. We first work on getting all of the hair off very quickly. There's usually 2 to 3 of us that do it very quickly. Pigs over the larger pigs, I have a guy that does it because he has a bigger tank than I do on there. And then after that is done, then you'll remove the offal from it, which is all the intestines, etc.
What do you do with all the organs?
The organs are here, just not the intestines.
Oh.
So the intestines, for me, because this is actually done in the field, so it would be a lot of extra work, and then you want to pasteurize those as well, and cleaning them all out and everything. So I would have to charge a lot of money to do that. Questions?
How old did you say the pig was? Like when you're...
This pig is probably about right around 4 months old, 4 to 5.
That's like the normal age.
Yeah, it just depends. Everybody's a little bit different. My pigs are right around 6 months-ish, 6 or 7. And, you know, for me, what determines is really litter size. So if, the pigs I have born, like this time of year, tend to be larger litters. When you breed in the hotter months, you tend to have smaller litter sizes simply because the sperm counts are lower in the male, and the female pigs don't ovulate as much. So this is a farm fact. I'm not trying to gross you out or anything, but so basically the reason, you know, on all like mammals, the testicles are outside of the body because at over about 92 degrees, you start to lose sperm counts. So the same thing as the temperature outside, as soon as the temperature goes over 90-ish degrees, you start to lose sperm count. And then also to the females are, even if they're in season, they're not ovulating very heavy, so you tend to get lower births. But, you know, pigs can, you know, I don't know what the record is, but on average they'll have anywhere between 8 to like 12 babies. We'll say that's an average on there. They can't have, if they have less than 3 viable fetuses in them, they'll abort the pregnancy, so the minimum is like 3 of them. And then, as I said, the weaning is anywhere. Commercially, they wean the pigs when you see those big warehouses and stuff at 2 weeks, and then they start giving them like a powdered milk, like a mush type of thing from there. And I get on mine about you can get 2 breedings a year, but out of a pig, basically, to where she can handle it. Sometimes, if the conditions aren't right, some of my sows, like, they may skip one or something. Just didn't work. If you force things, I've learned with farming, it never works. Mother Nature is always the editor in charge of everything. I do AI quite a bit as well. So, artificial insemination. There's all sorts of places to whatever animal you want, you can do it. But pigs it's actually pretty easy. It comes frozen from the Midwest, and I use boar to arouse her, and then basically when pigs are in heat, it's called a standing heat. So in order for her to support, a 900-pound, 1,000-pound animal, she has to lock her legs. So it's called a standing heat. And you have to be careful too, like if they're moving around in the heat, you should never tap them or something. It's like she's not moving for 10 minutes because Mother Nature has told her just bury something. So it's locked in there. But they have the penis on the boar is like a corkscrew, so the semen straws come that way too, and it's just a matter of it's in there. You have to take precautions when you're doing it because you want to do it just like a natural way. So when we're AIing, we're out there at 2 o'clock in the morning when it works. We're working what's best for her, not on our schedule, because we want the maximum results. The one thing I will say about pigs is that they don't keep bankers hours. So they don't set their when they're gonna have their litter. They're having I can say with I know when a cow cows when pretty much I can tell within my herd when they're gonna if somebody gives birth in the morning or afternoon. All my goats and sheep, they're all an hour before dawn, basically, on there. But pigs, they're they'll, if you're trying to go out to dinner, then it's okay, that's when I'm having my litter. Or, the coldest night when it's raining the most. I'm lucky that I've culled, which means I've, thinned out all the ones that don't do a great job by themselves anymore. When I had show pigs and, you're trying to get certain breed standards and stuff that are crazy, there was a lot of intervention you need, so we were actually having to pull babies and give her assistance and stuff like that. But I don't do that anymore, but that's the only thing. But you always want to check to make sure that, she's been able, because, if you have 12 babies in there, you could easily have one that's breech or backwards or upside down, that's clogging them up. And with first-time moms too, just like with people, not everybody's designed to be a mom, so. I had one pig that she was once a show pig, super friendly, had been around, done lots of things, and when she just was not a mom. And so the first baby that walked up to her face, she went, and I was like, what did you just do? I was in shock, and then they instantly killed the baby. And then the second one, she tried to do it again. I was like, okay, we're gonna get through this, but you're off the team after this.
Clock from the pen. How are the book different?
I don't know anything. Yeah, no. It's I'm not even sure how they farm there. On anything like that. So like I said, on commercial pigs here, they're basically raised in warehouse things. I don't know if you guys know this, but a really cheap source of feed is manure. So these pigs are raised on grates, commercial pigs, and so that goes down, and then that's pasteurized, so it's sterilized at 180, and then that's mixed into another thing, and that's part of their regular diet. So when you're thinking about like buying that $4 a pound bacon, or you see like those big specials on stuff, think about the life that animal had and what it was fed. So that is and that's been like a standard for 40 years or something, I think. So they're raised on grates, everything goes down. Yes?
So are pigs like dogs that they can sometimes free roaming, they can actually do it themselves, like eat actual food?
Will they eat their poo? If they're hungry or something, like, sure they would do it, but I mean, that's not, if there's lots of other things for them, they're not going, that's not like their first choice.
Okay.
But, like, I mean, they do, like, they, you know, they have this, like, this is like, I can't believe, you wouldn't believe how strong they are. Even like a little pig that's 50 pounds could like pretty much drag you. They are just pound for, they're like sharks. They are super, super strong. And it's amazing what they can bend, lift, dig a hole. Like the first thing, like when the pigs get out, not that they don't have a water hole and everything else, the first thing they have to do is walk over and break a pipe, and they go, because they're like, they got hot somewhere because they ran over somewhere. And I always laugh too when, you know, pig gets out, everyone is like, oh, pig's out. And I was like, she's not an Olympian. Like, she's not going to run away. It's like, you know, she'll let her walk around a little bit and she'll go back in, you know, because eventually they want to be with, you know, all of their posse. But they do have, you know, personalities, and my breeding stock is, you know, they will get names, but everybody else is, you know, they're a number. Want to take over? Sure. Thank you.
That was awesome. That was very educational. So my name is Chef DJ Tangling. I am getting ready to open my first own restaurant. It's going to be called Maya Eatery. It's going to be a Filipino-influenced breakfast, lunch, dinner, and late night spot in Hillcrest. And so while we're getting ready to open the restaurant, you know, I've been doing a lot of events and kind of showcase what we're going to do in the restaurant, and also giving back. I love doing a bunch of events and doing demos and sharing my knowledge with everybody. How many here are culinary students? Almost everybody? That's awesome. You know, so, me and Shav were talking a while ago when I got here, and we were discussing about the future of culinary world. And, you know, there's so much things to learn becoming a chef. You know, there's a big difference between a foodie, a food lover, you know, a person that's cooking, and a chef. And there's a big difference between being a chef and being a business owner as well. And hopefully those are the skills that you guys try to acquire, you know, while you guys are entering into this business. I've been cooking since I was 12 years old. So I've been doing this for like 22 years. I'm 34. My mom had a restaurant growing up, and my mom was also a fishmonger. So by the time I was 14, I was hacking fish bigger than me and filleting them. And I grew up in kind of like, not a farm, but I was raised with a lot of fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, livestock. We owned about almost 500 chickens, and there's ducks roaming around. There's a few pigs here and there, goats and stuff like that. So I grew up with that kind of surrounding, and I never understood why anyone would buy food. You know, so that was kind of like my upbringing until I moved to the United States, and everything was like canned. It's not like we didn't have canned foods in the Philippines, but I was so used to just like picking, like I was eating coffee fruit when I was growing up. That's why I was super hyper. And it was just this tiny red fruit, and I was like, I didn't realize that was coffee. And I was just popping them in my mouth because they were super sweet berries. So yeah, my culinary journey started when I was young. I moved to Hawaii and then moved to Jersey when I got proper training. Even though I've been cooking for a long time, I actually entered culinary school while I was a sous chef for a fine dining restaurant because I wanted to acquire more knowledge, and I wanted to be able to hang with the big dogs because my goal was ultimately cook at like Michelin star restaurants. So I wanted to acquire more skills. Even though I can hang on the line, I wanted more challenge for myself. So I started cooking in Jersey, and then I moved to Philadelphia to cook for Eric Repair at the Ritz-Carlton, and then from then I moved to New York, then I moved to Maryland, then I moved to Napa, and then I moved to San Francisco, and then I ended up in San Diego about 8 years ago. One of the first gigs I got in San Diego was at Whisk and Ladle in La Jolla. So super scratch cooking, everything made in-house. We were butchering whole pigs and doing whole animals all the time, charcuterie. So I really loved working there. And then I cooked in Little Italy. I cooked at Prep Kitchen Little Italy before all the big restaurants was there. Before, if you guys are from San Diego, the transition of Little Italy happened about 4 or 5 years ago. Before Ironside, Cat Exchange, Juniper and Ivy. And then I moved to closer to the water. I cooked in Pacific Beach at Tower 23. And then I opened Decoy up in San Marcos, and then moved back down to work in the resort. And then the last restaurant I worked at was Bivouac Cider Works, which is a cider tap room, which we won Restaurant of the Year and I won Chef of the Year. And then decided about a month ago that I would finally do my own restaurant because I wanted to pursue being an ambassador for Filipino food. And that was kind of like my calling about 3-4 years ago. And I understood what my role is in this culinary industry, which is to be an ambassador for Filipino food. So being a chef, the last thing actually in my mind is food. The first thing I think about is where to get the food. Who do I partner with when it comes to produce, pork, chicken, dry goods, and everything in between, the people that I hire, the people that I want to work with. So those are a lot of things that goes, when you wear that chef coat. How do you treat your employees? How much rate you're going to give your employees? How do you want to build your team and the environment that you're going to build? So culture is very huge when you're building a team and you're trying to, work up the ranks. And, that's my piece of advice is choose wisely where you guys work and who you guys work for. Ask a lot of questions, make sure that you challenge them and challenging yourself, on the process. Be like, hey, if I work here, like what kind of things are we going to do? Like, do you guys support this kind of, raising animals, or do you guys buy, salmon from people that you buy bleach from and stuff like that? So you guys got to have standards starting from now, and that will change the whole thing about the way we look at food, from butchering from nose to tail, utilizing the whole animal, learning techniques like pickling, charcuterie, any preservation, utilizing whole animals, whole plants, from root all the way to the fruit, those are the things that you guys have to think about when you guys go out there and pursue your culinary degree. All right, so let's go on a pig. So we're gonna cut this into primals, and then there's a lot of submuscle. This is actually a smaller pig to do a lot of submuscle cutting. Usually, like Jack said, some of the pigs are like 500 pounds. The last pig I butchered was a half a pig, and it was almost 250 pounds just for the half pig. This is about, I think, close to like 200 pounds. So we're gonna cut this into primals. That's Chef Alex. He's gonna cook stuff for us to eat. So this is some pork chop, some pork tomahawk that we marinated in a spice blend of paprika, brown sugar, thyme, oregano, salt and pepper, and it's been marinating there. And then he's gonna sear it, and we're gonna serve it with a Filipino side vegetable dish called pinakbet, which is squash, eggplant, long beans finished with fermented shrimp paste and fish sauce. And then we're gonna do Filipino pork adobo with the pork belly, and we're gonna do a variation called yellow adobo. So we're gonna flavor it with galangal, turmeric, coconut milk, and that's what we're gonna stew the pork belly. We're gonna serve that with rice and potato. And then the last thing we're gonna do is from the shoulders, we're going to do a Filipino barbecue with banana infused ketchup. All right, so head part. One of the primals, you can start searing that. Yeah. One of the primal cuts. So a lot of people, especially in like French cooking, Italian, and even Philippine cuisine, we use every cut that you can think of. So like right about here. It's right there. So we're gonna try to find a joint that we can kind of cut. And when you're cutting animals like this, when you're using like a saw, you just want to make sure, so you don't start with the saw. You start with the knife and cut through the meat, so you don't create heat. And then once you hear like a little pop, that's when it tells you to stop cutting. Food always talks to you. It tells you where to cut, how to cut, when to cut, and stuff like that. So, pretty easy, right? It was just like you find a joint and then you cut through there. Lots of different applications. Pig ears. In the Philippines, we have the dish called dinakdakan, where you cook the pig's ear and then you julienne it, and then you mix it with like kind of like aioli, and then you add. So basically, it's a pig ear ceviche. You add red onion. You actually get the brain and turn that into like a mayonnaise because it's creamy, and then you add citrus, spiciness, and stuff like that. And then Italian cooking, they'll actually butcher the whole head, and then you can roll it and then do a charcuterie, or you can roast the whole thing and then chop off pick all the meat and then do a dish called sisig in the Philippines. And then you can cook the whole thing again, and then pack it in, and then you can do head cheese with it. So those are a couple things that you can do with the pig's head. So over here on the shoulders, we'll take off the organs. So we got liver in here. So julienne that, sauteed onions, little demi, you're good to go.
Liver look to you?
It's good. I mean, the color is really good. Like, you know, when it's like grayish, that's when you know that it's kind of like old. We get a pig's heart.
So one thing you
Yeah.
always tell, like, it doesn't matter what, if it's a chicken, beef, or anything, if you look at its liver, you'll instantly know if that was a good animal
Yep.
or not. And so, it's just like us. So any kind of, if an animal's been sick, or medicine, or anything, it scars the liver, and you'll see that in there. That's the first thing you'll always, like, notice on there.
All right, so we got another one in here. I believe this is the kidney. Yep. So,
See some lungs.
yeah. So you can grind this up and add it to sausages. It'll help absorb some of the flavors. It'll give you a lot of good flavors. So there's the kidney right there. And then, so cutting the shoulder. There's two ways to look at it. There's one way to look at it for charcuterie, which you want to cut between the 6th and the 7th, because you're going to get a longer muscle here, which is used for like copa and stuff like that. But for like butcher houses and, you know, your local meat market, they will cut it between 5 and 6. So right here, so they can get more or less, because they're not using the rest of the shoulder for charcuterie. So, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here. You can see I can fill it right here. So that's where we're going to cut it. I can just there.
So tell them about, like, between the shoulder and the Boston butt.
Yep. There you go.
So when you say 6 and 7, are you counting
Ribs. Yeah. So from here, there's like the 6th and the 7th. That's where you want to cut it. So, you know, people always think like when you're butchering, you need like the biggest knife. You don't really. You want a smaller one, like a boning knife, so you can maneuver around the bones. So. And having like the animal on the butcher block is easier instead of cutting board, because you can use the weight and just like pop it. You don't have to work around it. You can literally like move this here and then like break it. So if you have like a butcher block. So same thing, I found like the joint. So kind of just let them tell you where to cut. Got a little bone right there. So the less you use the saw or any machine, the better, because you're not adding like sawdust on the meat, and you're not tampering with the meat itself. So it's easier. There you go. There you go. So right here, like I said, you know, it's not a big pig, so it's hard to do like small muscle cuts. But you can see this is like where the copa is, and then you can do a lot of sub cuts in here as well. You can do like a roast. If you split this, you can do skin on, or you can take off the skin, debone a little bit of the meat, and then wrap it using like butcher twine and have like a nice roast. So from this primal, you got trotter, right? You have the hock, okay? And then you have the rest of the shoulder. So you have the top part here, the shoulder, and then you have like the butt in here, all right? And then over here, you have the ham. So this is where your prosciuttos come from and stuff like that. So same thing, you got the trotter, you have the hock, and then you can have a lot of sub cuts between here. So we'll take the bottom part out. So over here, show you guys. So when you're cutting, like I said, it's easier if it's like a split pig, because you're gonna need like a machine to like split that in half. So if you order like a split pig, it's easier for you to butcher. So over here, when you have the split pig, you cut this part around, so that's like the flank. And then you work yourself around there, it'll be easier to just split the ham part. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take the flank part right here. So if you can see it right there, there's a lot of like cuts that it just tells you where to go. You don't really have to guess around. If you understand where the muscles are, it's easier. So we'll take the flank out here, so it'll expose the rest of that. So right there, trying to find that joint again. So sometimes you can just use the weight. Hear it? You can just use the weight of it to like pop it open. So if this was a butcher block, we didn't even need the saw for all the cutting. You can just use the weight too. So expose the bone and just like break it. Let's see if we can. There you go. There you go. So understanding like, you know, the body of the animal, you can literally just use its own weight to break it. There you go. And then this part, so you got the belly right here. You got, there's a little bone in here. That's your spare ribs. There's also, you can get spare ribs from this as well, because remember we cut it from the fifth, sixth bone, so you have 5 more bones of spare ribs in there. Just cut this part. There you go. So, through here, so right here, we're gonna take off the belly. We can kind of square it off, if you can see it from there. There's like bones right here. We want to line it all up, and then you can do like bone-in pork belly and stuff like that. So there's a little skin right here. So usually there's a when the pig is bigger and fatter, there's a fat somewhere here called leaf lard, and back in the day, that's what they would use for fat for pie crust, because it's the least flavorful fat, and before lard was invented, they would use that part. That's just excess skin. So we'll cut the belly so chef can cook some for us. So you got pork belly right there. So it'll be hard for us to cut it because it's whole. So we'll just cut the belly part. It's also great that if you guys are working with direct farmers, that if you guys order your pig to let it kind of dry age for about 7 days. Dry aging is really great. So meat tightens up a little bit, skin dries up a little bit more, and it's easier to cut through the skin without piercing through the rest of the meat. So right here you have the rest of the loins right here. You can do big cuts straight down, and you can do like pork tomahawks, or you can cut some of those spare ribs and do pork chop. There's a chine bone in here that you can clean, or you can do like bone in, skin on pork roast, or you can take the skin off and use the skin for chicharrones. If this pig was fatter, you have a lot of like back fat you can use for sausages. So literally 100% usage. You know, when you do whole animal butchery, you just need to know where to find all the meat process. There you go. So let's play with the head. All right, so with this one, we can actually take the whole thing off. You can take the ears out, or you can just keep it in there. So you can cook that straight up. Add some aromatics, and then julienne deep fry. Make like pig ear salad. So just get right there, and then just like anything, you just follow the bones. So pork cheeks, popular before, and then people kind of forget it, and then now it's back. So that's what food trend is all about, you know. Back in the day, just utilizing everything, and then now we're going back slowly, and that's a good thing for everybody. Good thing for the farmers, because now they don't have to really do a lot with the pig that they have. They just sell it whole to the chefs, and if the chef knows what he's doing, then you can utilize the whole product. The couple things that you want to avoid when you're cooking is the gland that usually you'll find somewhere in here. That's very bitter. Same when you're using bones for stocks, you want to actually take off the eyeball, because that will cloud your stock. So you want to take it out, because if that pops, it'll cloud your stock when you're trying to make like consomme and stuff like that. So pork cheeks. So you just follow the bone. There's always that little thing here where the actual cheek has like little channel that you have to work around with, and there's a lot of connective tissues in there. So you get that one side of the face, and then you do the other one, and then what you do is you just gonna, from here, you just gonna shave and then into the snout. So like Jack said, there's a lot of beauty and there's also a lot of things that a lot of people don't want to know about raising an animal and how an animal gets from a farm to styrofoam packages. And it's our duty as people in the food industry to educate. And the way you're going to educate people is learning it themselves. So I encourage everybody to go to farmers market, talk to your farmers, talk to your ranchers, and really challenge yourself into knowing more every day. And when I create a dish, the last thing in my mind is presentation. I think about everything else, like texture, color, technique, flavor combination, and then I worry about how it's going to look later. But if you have the knowledge and all the technique behind you, everything will just kind of fall into place. So you're kind of right there ready, and all you have to do is finish this part off. There's a lot of meat right there, but there's also a lot of kind of connective tissue and
rub on it and
so we're like 90% there.
While chef's doing this, there's gelato, vanilla bean gelato with some jam and corn powder. Right? Yeah. So you're welcome to help yourself to a small cup. The only people that look at it is I figured I better say something now before it got too late. There's too many.
There you go. There you go. Oh, the other way. There you go. All right. Yeah, you guys can look up. So, we got the primals already. Are we ready to serve anything? Are you ready? Is your pork chop resting?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to heat this back up, and then I'll start putting it in place.
It's so good. That bacon jam is so good.
Pork butt. So this is ham. This is actually called the butt, and this is called the picnic.
So for the char siu, this is what you use,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's the heart. Yeah. The brain, you can like a mayonnaise, like something creamy. You can blend it.
They go
After you cook
together
it.
with eggs.
What's that?
Inside.
Yeah. So you're gonna cook it, and then kind of split it, crack it open, and then you harvest it. Yeah, that's the skull. Yeah, that's the actual skull. Yeah.
The thing with the brain is when you make soup and you put the brain in, it stays. It looks
Yeah.
like the brain is
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. You want to grab a student so they can start like laying down food. What's that? Yeah, we're gonna take off the I'm gonna take off the trotter and the hawk. Oh yeah, this is hang. That's how they're gonna hang.
Okay, I was wondering how they
Yeah.
so they hang them from the heels.
Yeah. All right, guys. While Chef Alex is getting ready to serve the food, I'm gonna take off the trotter and the hawk. But if you guys have any questions, I can answer some of those good while I'm doing this. You can just yell out your question.
Chef, how long have you been doing butchery?
My first pig, I think, is when I was 21, so like 13 years ago. Yeah, I've been in the food industry for so long.
Do you find it's a lost skill that's starting to
Definitely a lost skill. It's because I think a lot of people focus on the finished product first instead of the resourcing and also the how it gets to that finished product. You know, a lot of people focus on, you know, building dishes based on already prepared items. You know, so.
Like there's only so much pork belly
Yeah.
pig. There's only 2 tri-tips on a 700-pound steer. And one thing you'll notice too, this pig has a tail. So most of the time if you get a pig from a commercial place, they basically take their tails off, sometimes here or all the way. It's because they're in such confined conditions that it's like our nose. It's very vascular and it bleeds. And in stressful and confined conditions, it'll cause cannibal situations with pigs. So they just take off their tails.
They eat each other's tail, basically. But so a cool technique that I've done with this is I've actually taken this, split it open, and then put a force meat or a sausage into it, and then saw it back on, and then roast it, and then you slice it. So you can buy this as very cheap product, and then you can it'll look like little sausages, but it's like big tail. We've also done that with chicken neck, where we took the chicken necks, split it, saved the skin, picked through the meat of the chicken meat, and then added more chicken meat, and then rolled it like a roulade, and then cover it with more skin, and then sliced it. I just saw this. So a good way to utilize the trotter is for stocks, and the best way to maximize the gelatin of this is splitting it open so you can release more gelatin. So, right here, you cut it open. This is actually a base of a lot of ramen broth. So, they use a lot of this. So, if you split it open, you'll release more gelatin, but use this for, in French cooking, they just braise this, red wine, demi, and stuff like that. So. So if you guys notice, it's always like finding that joint to make it easy for you. Because, you know, if you understand the, you know, the body of the animal, you don't have to kind of worry about trying to figure out where to cut. So we'll worry about that. Take the trotter out of this. There you go. Cool. How you looking? 5 minutes. You guys want to start putting veggies on the plate and then putting rice on the plate? Cool. Do you guys have any questions about, doesn't have to be this butchering related, anything like food related or culinary related questions? What's my favorite what? To cook with pork. I love low and slow kind of applications. So anything that involves like rubs and marinade and slow roasting and smoking, you know, because that for me is like love, you know. So anything that takes longer than 3 hours is what I like to do with pig. What else? It's called Maya Eatery. So Maya means little birds in the Philippines. Does anyone have questions? We are hoping to open at the end of May, beginning of June. 5th in Pennsylvania. So if you guys are from San Diego, it's the old brew project, right in front of Papaleco next to 278.
Are you guys still hiring?
What's that?
Are you guys still hiring?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even started the process, so we just bought the restaurant 6 days ago. Yeah, we just bought the restaurant, so right now we're on the planning stage on how to redesign the restaurant and start buying all of our kind of furnitures and stuff like that, because it's a turnkey, so it's the build out is ready. All we have to do is put our stuff and then we'll reopen. So I've written the breakfast, lunch, happy hour / late night menu, and we're finalizing the dinner menu. That's why we've been doing pop-ups everywhere to practice the dinner menu, because breakfast, lunch is kind of casual, but the dinner menu we're taking up like 10 notches up. So yeah. A lot of Filipino influence. So every dish will have a story about why it's on the menu, but we've used a lot of global and international techniques and influence, because the story of the menu is from the days of Negritos, Indos, Mayans, all the way to the first trades of Philippines with India and China, into the Spanish colonization from the 1500s to the 1800s, and the influence of Japanese, Chinese, and American. Yeah. So it's a lot of research trying to put together the story of why we're doing what we're doing at Maya. Yes, there will be a, so basically it's two different, so the restaurant that we bought is 3 stories. And the first floor is patio, the second floor is the main dining room where the bar is, and the third floor is we're going to do a separate kitchen. It's going to be a kind of food speakeasy, and we're doing our version of everything raw. So it's basically kilawin and kinilaw, so there's no heat source on the third floor, but we're doing a lot of, so we're going to do a Filipino version of sushis. We're going to do kilawin, which is our ceviche, kinilaw, which is our tartar and stuff like that. So when we did the last pop-up, our amuse-bouche was a mango sticky rice nigiri. So we took short grain rice, cook it with coconut milk, added a mango infused condensed milk, and then cool it down, and then turn them into like a rice ball. And then calamansi is a Filipino citrus. We took the seeds out and made a calamansi koshu with bird's eye chili, a little bit of mirin, soy sauce, and fish sauce, and then that's what we replaced wasabi. And then we took Manila mango and then slice it like a fish, and then we put bagoong, which is fermented shrimp paste, and then that's what we did with nigiri. So
So is there other types of dishes besides pork dishes?
on the menu?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, pork would probably be 10% of the menu. But there's, we're going to have a lot. So there's a Filipino dish called kare-kare, which is from the trades with India, which because they didn't have a curry version in the Philippines, so they called it kare-kare. And it's the introduction of annatto powder as well. And it's usually made with oxtail. And so for our restaurant, we're doing something different. We're going to take beef tongue, braise the beef tongue, and then slice it thin, and then pickle it. And we're going to do a pickled beef tongue kare-kare.
What's your next pop-up?
My next pop-up would be 25 and 26. And then we have a food event for the San Diego Food Bank on the 27th.
We are in negotiation.
Yeah, so we might do the 25, 26. There you go. So yeah, I mean the menu is going to be super dope. I mean it's something that a lot of people have never seen. Even we're not describing our restaurant as a Filipino restaurant because it's not a Filipino restaurant. It's a Filipino influenced restaurant where we're shooting for the first Michelin star in San Diego.
You said that you used to do a fillet fish.
Yes.
And you obviously fillet fish, but have you ever done any other type of animal, or what types of animals?
Yeah, I've done lamb, goat, rabbit, chicken, every fish you can imagine, pig. Yeah, I've done a lot.
How do they compare and contrast to?
Well, it's just bigger animals have more meat-specific cuts, and then like smaller animals, you kind of try to do it like very delicate, like a rabbit. You have to do like kind of bone-in stuff because it's so hard to individual cut, or you'll end up with like small pieces like this. So like smaller animals, you tend to do like more like primal cuts. Questions? You guys good? Cool. All right, I'm gonna go help him put the food together. Woo!
He's resting a little bit.
Where's Christine? Is Chef Christine ready with the bread? So we can start with the sandwiches?
Yeah, I think she was.
Okay. This is for your salad. Were you under? Are you good now? Perfectly. We can use it. I'm gonna sanitize it. No, we're good. They're just getting ready to serve you. So the adobo was the rice. The pinakbet is just the pinakbet loin and then the salad. But that's fine.
That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're fine. You can stage stuff here too. That's for the salad. I mean that's for the sandwich. Yeah.
This is right, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then are you almost ready with this? Okay. Is your bread ready?
I got it almost done.
Okay, okay. Cool, cool, cool.
Which one do you want? This one?
Huh?
No.
Either or. Either or. Either or. Whatever you have the best here. Let me see the flip side of that. Yeah, looks good. Yeah, that one. Yeah. Save that. You
From Mexico to California. So that's ground up in there. But in light of DJ's project, I decided to do half coconut milk in the recipe, throw in some purple sweet potato into the bread. So you'll notice it's pretty soft and kind of pillowy, and threw some toasted coconut on top. I think it'll, yeah. I got to sample the banana sauce, and you guys are lucky students today, let me tell you. I wanted to shout out to DJ because I think those of you who have attended some of the classes I've done or some of my friends have done, I think it's really important to understand the word ambassador. You know, it's bigger than all of us. It's not just that one plate, even though that plate in front of you is freaking delicious. You put your blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's really bigger than us. Something I spoke with DJ about when he was foraging in the garden with me on Friday with his family was that just has anyone heard of the term food anthropology? Or like, you know, the basis of food, where it comes from, the stories he's telling, you know, it's Filipino inspired, but really, just like America, it's a cross, you know, culmination of so many things. So I love that his concept focuses on that. It's not just about him, it's about everybody and everything. So that's congratulations.
Thank you.
Very excited.
Cool, so your next course would be the pork sandwich. So we grab some of the shanks. So from this part of the pig and this part of the pig, we roasted it, and then we, so in the Philippines, like I said, we have the condiment of banana ketchup, and then we turn that banana ketchup into a barbecue sauce. And so there's a lot of sweet and sour element to it, and so we coated the roasted pork with barbecue sauce, and then we're going to serve it with a tsunamono salad, which is a sesame pickled cucumber. I added a little bit of galangal here and ginger to give it that kind of flavor that people don't really utilize a lot. And most of the dishes that I've been creating is based on ingredient based and story based. You know, I'm not looking for the final project or product to, when I create a dish, I start with what story do I want to tell about this dish and what ingredients do I want to highlight, and that's how I build my dishes. Then I started asking questions of like, do I have texture, do I have color, do I have all the flavor profile that I want to highlight, and then I think about like the presentations later. Even though like on Instagram, you know, the food that I do looks like it's like ready for magazine, but it's literally the last thing I think about when I'm creating dishes. Because it doesn't matter how pretty your food is or how many flowers you have on that food, it needs to be flavorful. And that's how you guys should think about building dishes. But people eat with their eyes, and you know, we're in the society where people take lots of pictures, and of course you want to be able to have a product that is both pleasing to the eyes and pleasing to the palate. But for me, most importantly, it needs to have a story, and it needs to be very flavorful, and you have to be able to connect from the finished product to where it came from. Ultimately, because if you don't do that, then what's really the point of what we're trying to do? You know, because getting into culinary is such devotion to it. You know, nobody goes into culinary saying, I'm going to be a millionaire after I graduate. No, you're going to be making minimum wage for the next 5 years is what you're going to do. If you don't excel and if you don't put the work. You know, prior to us putting together the menu for the Maya, we literally flipped over 60 books in 2 weeks to be able to figure out what story we want to tell people about the food that we're doing. So yeah, so we'll put together this sandwich and enjoy. Yeah, okay. And then we can put the sunamono inside. All right. You want to grab a little bit of this pickles and put it on the side, and then we can top it off. Oh, gotcha. That's why I was like, I just came from a conference the other day. It's the Chefs Roll Anti-Convention, and there's a lot of OG chefs, mentor chefs. I don't know if you guys seen the Netflix documentary, The Last Magnificent, where Jeremiah Tower, where it was the height of California cuisine with Alice Waters in Chez Panisse in Berkeley, and she had a sous chef, Jeremiah Tower, and he was doing food that's like way out there and almost better food than Chez Panisse. And Alice Water is the advocate for sustainability and local ingredients and stuff like that. And she told Jeremiah Tower to go do his thing, and he opened Stars, and it became one of the most important restaurants in American history. And he was the chef at that documentary, The Last Magnificent, and I get a chance to sit down with him. And the importance of mentorship and being able to be really taking your craft seriously. He consulted in a restaurant 2 years ago, and Chef Jeremiah Tower is like pushing 80. And a phone rang in the restaurant, and the cook picked up his phone and answered it in the middle of service. And Chef Jeremiah Tower was like, "What are you doing?" And the young cook was like, "What's your problem?" And Chef said, "You're my problem, because you are not taking this seriously." And once you guys go out there, you have to realize that this is a craft that you have to perfect for the next 30, 40, 50 years. Whether you're in catering or you're single restaurant or corporate chef for McDonald's, because it's more than just food. It's from the time a little pig, is into the world, from the seed. You have to be able to look back and know where you're getting everything and be able to share that to the people, because at the end of the day, cooking is love, because you're giving nutrition to somebody, and if you don't think that way, then you're missing the point of what cooking is all about. So I hope you guys learned something, not just the butchering part, but the overall feel of like what it is to put a chef coat on, because we have a responsibility to everybody that we're trying to serve food with, and not just to direct customers, but we were talking about sustainability and buying here. And I want you guys to understand, when you say buying locally, it adds dollar to the economy. It gives local businesses more money to pay their workers. And when I open my Facebook page, and every chef I know is looking for cooks, and everybody's asking, why is there such a shortage of cooks in San Diego? It's because a lot of people are leaving because, we don't have, $15 an hour yet. you know, and it's really hard to go into a business and says that I'm going to do this and this and this and make a profit and then share it with everybody else. You know, it's that small margin in the restaurant business. You're lucky if your margin is like 3% and that's like $3 out of $100 that you make. You know, really, really good businesses can stretch it all the way to like 12 to 18. Really bad businesses goes to negative. And that's how people take shortcuts and people choose the cheaper products. And you guys need to understand that there's more than just putting food on the plate. It's sourcing, it's portion control, it's hiring the right people, and it's training yourself to be better every day. All right? Thank you guys. Appreciate you.